Has this Texas legislative session been a disappointment for conservative legislation? Hey, everybody, I'm Chad Hasty, host of the Chad Hasty Show, which airs weekday mornings 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. Matt Mackowiak joined me on Tuesday's edition of the Chad Hasty Show, and we got into an interesting discussion, which we'll pick back up next week, about the current legislative session and the fact that many conservatives are upset about this session. Listen, on the pro side, more school financing have made available. It looks like to lawmakers. Of course, we still have a few days left in the legislative session to see how all this plays out. Another plus side, property tax reform, not relief, but reform, reining in the huge amount of increases in taxes moving forward. Big win for taxpayers on that front. But also a big loss for taxpayers, as you're not going to see significant tax relief in your bills next year. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen probably for a while, as lawmakers will now try to move on and hold this discussion about whether or not to do a sales tax swap or to move towards a consumption tax. And if we do that, we have to cut spending. Well, does anyone really want to do that in the Texas legislature? Those are things that we'll talk about as the weeks progress. But that's a big loss for property owners in Texas, and a big loss for conservatives who promised the moon. They promised significant tax relief going into this session, and it did not happen. Property tax reform, yes. Good job to Dustin Burrows and Senator Paul Bettencourt on that front. But significant property tax relief, no. Didn't happen. Also, some big time conservative pieces of legislation have failed, as we know it. Of course, nothing's done until sine die, but we can pretty much be assured that when it comes to taxpayer funded lobbying, that bill dead. That's supported by many Republicans, many conservatives, and even some Democrat voters out there, but killed by the Texas House. Also dead when it comes to the issue of election integrity and ballot integrity. There was a piece of legislation there that was killed. A lot of legislation, common sense legislation, that was killed in this session. Go back to my interview with Matt Mackowiak and listen to that, and then tune in on Tuesday after Memorial Day weekend when Matt Mackowiak and I will talk more about this and what conservative voters need to know and what conservative politicians need to know going into the upcoming primary season and general election. I'm not ready to say that this session was a total disappointment. I don't think it was. I think that there were some good pieces of legislation that were passed. And yes, it's true. You don't get everything you want during the Texas legislative session. That's been true forever. But there were some bills that I think should have passed that did not pass. This isn't necessarily a disappointing session, but maybe a little bit of a letdown type of session. Good for the future, but a letdown for today. Tune in to the Chad Hasty Show weekday mornings, 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO.